Welcome back to Say Nothing, the podcast bringing you an exclusive serialization of this gripping audiobook. Whether you're tuning in for the first time or following along chapter by chapter, settle in, get comfortable, and enjoy the ride. If you can't wait for the next episode, or you'd like to experience Say Nothing in full, you can purchase the complete book right now. Just follow the link in the description. Chapter 4. He sat with his only companion, sadness. Cruel and crooked, it taunted him in silence, reminding him of the mistakes of his past. For years he had been absent from his family, focusing on others in pursuit of the greater good. It was a burden he now had to bear in later life, and one which meant he sat alone in his cavernous 3-bedroom home, surrounded by nothing but emptiness. In front of him lay an open address book, littered with scrawls and crossed-out names. Something about the mess of his handwriting made everything more real. Central, among the deleted addresses and telephone numbers, was the name Sarah. Keeping the contact details of his estranged daughter was easy thanks to past connections, but the many different addresses attributed to her made it clear just how hard she had tried to cover her tracks. Of course, Jack had no reason to expect anything less. After all, it was his decision to accept promotion to Metropolitan Special Branch and live a life isolated from his family. What else did he expect his daughter to do? The positives he'd effected in accepting the role today rang hollow. As he sat in silence, Jack felt disgusted at how easy he found it to make the decision. The realization of a personal dream made the opportunity too difficult to resist. Since childhood, he had his heart set on joining the police. There was a trace of a memory in which he could see himself sitting on the floor, wearing a fake policeman's helmet and playing with a plastic baton. There was a desire within him to do what was just and what was right. But like so many dreams, the reality was so much different. Growing up, he found it difficult to associate with his peers. Their desire to push the boundaries of the law was something he could never accept. Throughout his teenage years, he found himself left out of group invitations and seldom trusted with the secrets of others. It mattered little at the time. His determination to uphold what was just and honest was what defined his entire life, so for there to be any form of resentment would be folly. It may well have played a significant role in his desire to remain distant from those closest to him, but was that always a bad thing? Besides, those in a position of authority had a respect for Jack from a young age, and knew that he could be trusted with any responsibility that came his way. As he reminisced, the steadfast pride that had long accompanied him returned. The stoicism he felt about things had made him effective and clinical in his work. So what if there was no one to applaud him for doing so? Inside he knew that he had performed a duty. This return of pride was all too fleeting. As he looked down to the address book and again fixed his stare on Sarah's name, he was overcome with sadness. Reaching out a trembling hand to take hold of the book, he lost all ability to grip and it dropped to the floor. How had it come to this? First the memory loss, now this. He left the pad on the floor and made his way to the kitchen. The short walk felt like a journey through hell, his muscles aching like never before. Each stride demanded more effort than reward, and the energy expended left him haggard and exhausted. A stroll of no more than 15 paces had aged him 30 years. Grabbing a chair at the kitchen table, he lowered himself slowly. The instant he sat down, his mind jolted. Waking up had become a chore, staying awake more so. The last thing he remembered was fixing himself some lunch then. Before he knew it, he was asleep on the couch. As he awoke, Jack nursed a piercing headache in his right temple. How long had I slept, he thought to himself. his mind awash with confusion. It was times like these when he feared for the worst. How was he going to survive when he couldn't concentrate for even a short period? It was the contrast between day and night that so confounded him, forever lapsing into slumber at the most inconvenient times. During the evening, however, he found it impossible to stay asleep, waking up in a cold sweat with his mind leaping from subject to subject. With the need to relieve himself 3 or 4 times in a single night, he was beginning to feel like his body was working against him through spite. There was a time, not so long ago, when there was so much to live for. He was in the midst of an investigation that led to the prevention of a terrorist attack on the Capitol. The news never became public, but the potential catastrophe was averted due to the diligence and dedication of Jack and his team. It was a time when he thrived under pressure. He had the trust of the government to perform according to his own volition, and in doing so, had prevented unprecedented havoc from hitting the streets of London. That was what life was about. And now, here he was, trapped inside a body that seemed intent on punishing him. It had caused him to leave the job he so valued and left him to maintain an existence that was a shadow of what it used to be. Like a bolt of lightning from the sky, Jack's mood switched. There was a conversation he had as a young police cadet which stayed with him to this very day. If you can't help yourself, don't expect anyone else to. It was as pertinent today as it was 3 decades ago. He was a fighter. He had never given in before, and he wasn't going to give in now. Feeling sorry for himself was something Jack couldn't abide, and it wasn't a character trait he was going to embrace. With a sharp intake of breath, he hauled himself from the sofa. Though a red-hot pain shot through his legs, he did all he could to ignore it and break free from the clutches of his temporary bed. There may only be one winner in this ongoing battle, but Jack was determined to drag out the fight until the bitter end. The letter still sat on the kitchen table. As he walked into the room with his fresh sense of determination, Jack picked it up and read the short message it contained. Following our recent consultation, I recommend starting you on a course of levodopa on a dose of 500 milligrams twice each day. Before we begin with the treatment, I request that you return to the surgery at your earliest opportunity to discuss physiotherapy options and to schedule a meeting with a specialist nurse. Where there had been a resignation and a fear of what was to come, Jack's thoughts had made such a dramatic turn that he immediately reached for the phone. Calling the number of the doctor's surgery, he waited for a response. Clark Road Surgery. Emma speaking. How can I help? Asked the voice down the receiver. Oh yes. Hi, I'm calling to arrange an appointment with Dr. Phillips. Certainly. Can I ask what it's regarding? Jack sighed heavily, resentful of the need to discuss his problems with a receptionist. I'd rather not say. Can't make an appointment with a doctor unless we know what it's concerning, sir. He sighed a second time. Fine, it's about my Parkinson's. I need to see Dr. Phillips as soon as possible to discuss physiotherapy and medication. Okay, sir. Well, the doctor is booked up all this week. Best I can do is Tuesday morning at 9:15. How's that for you? Jack was silently outraged by the option provided, but made a point to check his emotions. Fine, that's fine. As the receptionist proceeded to take down his information and schedule his appointment, Jack caught a glimpse of someone standing just outside his property. The figure was motionless and gazing towards the upstairs window. Conscious his memory was deteriorating, he was adamant that the figure was a stranger. He tried to rush the receptionist through the booking procedure and hung up before she could wish him a good day. Tuesday, 9:15, he thought as he made his way to the front door. Make a note. As the front door opened, the figure made no motion to move. Jack stood before him, but the stranger remained still, staring upwards. "Excuse me," inquired Jack as he slowly made his way down the path. "Excuse me, can I help you?" Gaze disturbed, the figure fixed his eyes on the man coming towards him. "No." The slowness of his movements and the coldness of the air were causing Jack's joints to stiffen, hindering his movement. The unwelcome figure edged further and further away, leaving Jack with no choice but to concede defeat and head inside. As he made his way back, he paused, looking up to identify what the stranger had been looking at. There was nothing apparent on the property's facade. Suspicion kicked in. Had he been keeping watch while there was an intruder? All the windows were intact, so Jack dismissed the notion out of hand. Whatever the reason, he felt uneasy. His career meant making enemies was easy. The number of threats made towards him and his family over the years ran into the hundreds. Was this a vendetta from days gone by? Whoever the figure was and whatever his aim, Jack only had one choice in the matter. From now on, he would make sure he kept a closer guard on his property. Thank you for listening to this excerpt from Say Nothing, a compelling thriller currently available on Amazon. Follow the link in the description to order your copy today. Please like and review this podcast and recommend to your friends. Don't forget to tune in again and join us for the next chapter.